All right, babies, we are fresh off of day one of free agency. CP, I don't know if you saw this. We've got a couple days left of Cap Friendly, and Cap Friendly alerted all of us that this is the first day since they have been tracking all of this stuff that teams have amassed over $1 billion in the first day of free agency. Hockey's on the come up.
Dude, everybody rising tides, dude. We all getting rich. It's about time. I might add.
It's about time people were getting paid out here. And I will say I'm a little bummed that neither of us got scooped on day one. Like, what the fuck? What do we have to do for someone to toss us an offer sheet?
I'm a day one guy, dude. I always have been. That's what's bullshit.
I agree, dude. It's unfortunately we're both buyout guys realistically, but I mean, fucking A. Well, here's the deal. We're going to rip off a few quick-hitting winners and losers of day one of free agency because that was absolute madness. I think the craziest thing, man, is it feels like almost everyone got scooped. There's like 4 or 5 guys left that realistically are free agents that I'm like, one of these guys has to get picked up immediately. We're waiting on those. But it just felt like everything happened.
Dude, I was thinking to myself at the end of the day, I was like, crazy day, but there's, because I did a live earlier and people were talking about people that teams that haven't done much and they were like freaking because, there wasn't a ton of movement today. And I was like, well, it's day one. There's a ton of people still left. And then when you kind of look at the lists of like top remaining free agents, I'm like, oh, everybody got signed today. And by the way, Dan, fucking LOL at the NHL's tampering rules. Where they're like, dude, the second the market opened at 12, 50 fucking deals came in, and I was like, oh, you guys closed that in 1 minute?
Yeah,
and I don't give a fuck, obviously, but it's just hilarious that they're like, oh, no, we've obviously been talking this whole time.
I mean, let's be real. We broke the Brett Pesce to New Jersey Devils news a week ago, and that even had the term and contract number. So pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, LOL agreed, but either way, it is a electric day. Let's get into winners and losers. I want to start with losers.
Okay. We're going to do 3 on winners and losers, but in classic CP fashion, I have several honorable mentions that I just wanted to talk about.
And I like that. And that is your right, sir. That is your right.
I want to say this. The Dallas Stars, who I am so high on, everybody knows.
Yeah.
And the Carolina Hurricanes, who I'm reasonably high on too. I know I'm sick of their bullshit. I've said that several times. But I think that team is good. And every time people are sleeping on them, I'm like, they're good. They both had Carolina more had big questions coming into this summer. But when I look at what went down on those 2 teams this year, I'm like, today, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't think they got that much better. Like, I don't know about the Dumba contract in Dallas, Lyubushkin. That felt like too much. You go from Wedgwood to Casey Smith in goal. Like, I just feel like the Stars got slightly worse. And I could say the same about the Canes. Like, a lot of movement on their back end, brought some people in, lost some people.
Yeah.
And I just like, oh man. And they had a lot of decisions, but to me, those 2 are really good teams that got a tiny bit worse today.
I kind of agree with that. Like, we all knew that Carolina was in a tough pinch after losing last year and looking at their contract situations. We were like, oh shit, what are you going to do? Always felt like Pesce and Shea were going to be gone. Pesce and Shea are gone. I do respect that they did quick work and got Sean Walker and Shane Gostisbehere immediately filled in there. And we'll see what goes down with our boy Seth Jarvis and then Marty Necas. Like, those guys are RFAs. They got to figure that out. I do agree. They got a little bit worse. I respect that they didn't just leave gaping holes. Like, they immediately went out there and got people. But you're right. Like, they are not as good simply on paper as they were last year. So let's, or do you have something else?
Just a few more. Tampa, because how dare you? We've said this a couple times and we'll get into this more later, but just like, I can't believe the way you'd shake up the room like that. So how dare you, Tampa?
Yeah.
Buffalo, I hated the Skinner buyout, and I actually think that's a great deal for Edmonton. Like, that's an awesome pickup. and they have a few holes still, and they just didn't do shit. Like they haven't done anything.
Totally, man.
Kraken, you and I kind of went back and forth on this one. Chandler and Brandon Montour, good players, just like too much money, maybe.
No, not maybe. I mean, listen, these are guys we love, but like it's just the price. Brandon Montour you pointed out, he had 73 points 2 seasons ago and then 33 points this past year, and you're giving him that deal. I mean, that's a huge ticket. And you just like, we're forced to beg the question here, like, holy smokes, like, was that the going rate? Is that what it needed to be? And I don't know that the answer to that question is yes. So you look at some of these other defensemen that have got scooped up by other teams, and you just like, you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of the prices. And Chandler Stevenson, 30 years old, Chris, 7 years, 6.25 mil a year. This is a guy who has been playing with Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault. He's a great player, but is he a guy that's going to drive his own line? And yeah, there are wingers on that team that are going to be solid, but that one did feel just like a holy smokes, that was a fat ticket. And then yeah, to your point on Brandon Montour, same deal, 7 years, 7.14 mil a year. Like, that's a fucking big ticket, man. So I think that they need more scoring on the blue line, but we also talked about, I feel like they needed the Devon Taves to Cale Makar for Vince Dunn. And Montour's not that. Montour is an equally offensive talented defenseman. So like, you've got two great offensive defensemen now, but who's like shutting down the other team's top line? So those were interesting ones. I'm with you. I would have them in the honorable mention loser category.
And do the Ducks honorable mention.
Yeah, our last honorable mention is the Anaheim Ducks, and it's interesting because I almost want to give them an incomplete. Like,
yeah, and I'm still really high on the Ducks, by the way.
Me
like,
too.
Going into next year, I'm like, I think the boys are just fine. They're just fine. But this was funny though.
I couldn't feel more conflicted because I'm so high on the Ducks' future, and I thought that they were going to come into yesterday and make a massive splash. And they literally did nothing. That's not an exaggeration. They did nothing. They're $8.8 million under the cap floor, and they signed nobody. So,
and Dan, you and I are sitting here waiting for a deal. Like, if you have $8 million to light on fire, you take some miles, I'll take some miles. Everybody's happy. Dude.
Spread those out, dude. It's unbelievable. Chris, we're right up the road. We're in LA. We're sitting here. But I am going to say, I do think a guy that is a perfect fit, that is unsigned, that is our boy, and I would be thrilled to have him close by, is Daniel Sprong.
Oh my God, that would be actually epic.
I think Spronger,
but I hope he goes back to Detroit.
I think Spronger would be a fantastic fit. But that was a perfect segue, CP. Let's get into our 3 losers of day one. I hate to say it because these are my guys. I've got the Detroit Red Wings. I think,
dude,
it's crazy because they started off so hot, right? Like, they got Kaner. Everyone was like, oh, Kane's going back to New York. Felt like maybe there was some unfinished business there because he was a little bit injured when he was playing with the Rangers. But Detroit bet on him. He played great. He's playing with his boy Cat again. He fits in with Larkin really well. That felt like a great first step in the Yzer plan. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, here we go. And then Detroit goes in, and in day one, there are so many things that they needed, Chris. And then they go and get Jack Campbell, super pumped for Soupy to get a restart. Small deal, 1 year, $775K. Then they go and get Cam Talbot. So Talbot's making 2 by 2.5. And then they get Eric Gustafson on 2 by 2. Here's my issue with Detroit. They have 5 goalies right now in Husso, Lyon, Talbot, Campbell, and Kosa. And they have 5 left shot D-men in Sherratt, Edvinson, Johansson, Mata, Gustafson, and Lagesson. So I'm like, what did we do here? Like, that's another team that I'm like, they're on the come up. There was a lot of awesome players. I mean, so many people were talking about Stammer possibly going there, and like, they just didn't do anything really. And to have 5 goalies and now 5 defensemen on that left side, that's what you have to show for after day one. It's the first time in a couple of years where I'm like, Yzer plan. I don't know what's going on.
Well, listen, dude, there's a very famous expression. If you have two quarterbacks, you actually have no quarterbacks. And I I believe it was the great Gordie Howe, maybe, who once said, if you have five goalies, you have fucking -3 goalies and you're missing the playoffs. So they need to figure that the fuck out right now. But I love the Kane signing. He wanted to come back. That was a pretty good number for him, and I think that's really nice. So, but they're in the losers. I wanted more.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's like, you just said it perfectly. You five goalies, you've got no goalies, and obviously this must mean we're going to get some sort of trades going on here, but it's just for what is the big question. Moving on to our next loser, our current day hometown team. Also hate to say it, LA Kings, man. Like they were always kind of up against it here, I think. The PL trade, we did a whole episode on, kind of scratching our heads on that one. And then they come into day one, sign Joel Edmondson to a 4 by 3.85 deal. He's a 31-year-old defenseman. And then scoop up Warren Foegele, 3 by 3.5. Foegele, 28 years old, was just in the Stanley Cup with the Oilers. He's a real good, gritty bottom six, middle six player, sure. But that's the moves that they make. They've lost players. The thing that I think is crazy is now, I mean, Edmondson and Kemper are making more combined than PL was making.
Yeah.
So like you didn't really shed cap. That is another one. You lose Matt Roy, who goes to Washington. I'm shocked that this is the defensive fill that they did. Again, all these defensemen, man, there were good defensemen available. We're going to get to a lot of those. But these moves by LA just do not move the needle for me at all.
Took the words right out of my mouth there, Dan, on D. That's how the Kings win, with D.
Yeah.
And the Roy for Edmondson is like, that's not it at all.
No.
So yeah, they're in loser category, and that's a team that I really wanted to see make a splash, but didn't happen.
Yeah. Pretty simple too, right? Like it's just a lack of moves and a lack of quality moves.
Yeah, I like the Foegele signing, to be honest, but that team that's a tough division now. Like,
yeah,
look at the Pacific. Are you fucking kidding me? That they need way more than that.
You're so right. But it's fucked though, CP, because like I look at that Foegele signing, and you're right. That is a good one. Like I'm super happy for Foegele. I think he'll fit in well, but he's making 3.5. I look at the loss of Foegele, and then Jeff Skinner goes to Edmonton. Think about Jeff Skinner playing with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Like Jeff Skinner's going to have 80 points next year, probably.
Yep.
So it does feel like a kick in the shins. All right, now this one, our last one, our third loser of day one. This might ruffle some feathers. We got the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy because I said if they come out of this with Zadorov and Tanev, then I'm like, okay. I said that I was like, that's a sign that the Leafs are kind of doing some shit that's not so typical Leafs.
Yeah.
Then they signed Tanev to a hefty ticket and had to trade for the ability to do that. Missed Zadorov and then take OEL, who had a hell of a game 7. I gotta say, had a hell of a game 7. But I don't know how young the legs are going to look when he doesn't have the adrenaline pumping through his neck vein because it's game 7 and his life's on the line.
Yeah.
And then they signed like 5 backup goalies.
That's perfectly said, dude. Tanev signs a 6 by 4.5, 34 years old. So they're paying $4.5 million to Chris Tanev when he's 40 years old. OEL signs a 4 by 3.5. So he's 32 years old. So you're signing these guys into the twilight years of their 30s. It is just funny to me that Toronto needs D. What do? They go and sign the 2 oldest D available, it felt like, to semi-long-term. I mean, certainly long-term for Tanev, but 4 years and 6 years to a 32-year-old and a 34-year-old. And then they go out and they re-sign Wall to 3 by 3.66. Yep. Good deal. Great deal.
And I support that. I know that they believe in him, and I was giving him a hard time, but he'll be good.
25 years old. I like that. But then they go and get Stolars as their backup, 2 by 2.5, and then sign Matt Murray to 1 by, vet mid. But like, it's another thing. I'm like, why?
And
Why
Stolarz was kind of sick last year too,
Yeah. Oh, that's
in
a
the
good
backup role
tandem.
to Bob.
Wall and
But it's just
Stolars
like,
is a good tandem. I think that's an
you
upgrade
hope,
to Sammy.
you hope.
Yeah.
But like, you don't know, right? Like, I know
Totally.
Wall's been good, but like that, you fucking hope that's a good tandem. But if it isn't, then everyone goes, "Why do you have 2 backups?" And I go, "Because you're fucking dumb, dude. You've been dumb this whole time."
It's crazy. I still have eyes on a Marner trade. I would be truly shocked and dumbfounded if Tree Living doesn't pull the trigger on that and figure it out. I think you could get such a valuable return for him that would help the team. So they can turn it around absolutely with a good Marner trade that brings something back. But yeah, you bring in 3 goalies and then you bring in the 2 oldest defensemen on the market. I just feel like that is so typical Leafs. Like, this is, like you said, every year we hear like, what do the Leafs need? They need D, and then they sign D. Like, they often just get these like older D, and then they're like, ah, man, they were too long in the tooth. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, what the fuck are we talking about? Let's get into our winners.
Okay,
do you have any honorable mention winners?
Yeah, I do.
I had a
fucking
feeling.
Do. You
I had a
kidding me?
feeling.
One I just mentioned, and this one barely sneaks in, but they've really won me over, man. The Oilers, and it was a lot of in-house shit, Dan. Janmark comes back, Henrique comes back, Corey Perry comes back. They bring in Ardvison, they bring in Skinner, which we said. I just think there was a lot of like micro moves there that
Agree.
That's a good day. I just think they had a good day. Like, they're not wanting for massive star power, obviously. And when you kind of like every time a move came in, I was like, whatever, that doesn't move the needle. But when I looked at all of them on paper, I was like, oh, that was actually good business by the Oilers today. So there's my first one. Second one, the Panthers, mostly because of our boy Sam. Just like, what a deal.
Yeah, that's huge.
That was. And then I'll also say they didn't overpay. When you win the cup, like, everybody wants more. You see this in all pro sports. Like, guys start getting paid because they just won a championship. They could have easily overpaid Montour and Ekman Larson just to do it, to be like, we got to keep the gang together. And I just thought they made savvy business decisions on those 2 guys 24 hours after like celebrating a parade. They're like, good day, dude. Thanks for everything.
I agree. I thought that was like quick moves. And I do kind of like all of them. I got a couple honorable mentions.
Okay.
For like actually kind of similar moves. My first one is, I really like the Sharks. I really like bringing in Toffoli and Wenberg. I just think, like, obviously Toff, our boy, but the idea of Toff playing alongside of these like young studs is just like, what a perfect guy. And Wenberg is a similar vibe to that. Like, I think they're just like really good vet wingers that are going to mesh well. I think they're going to enjoy San Jose. And then I love what Chicago did.
Oh, okay.
Chicago's not getting in the playoffs anytime soon, but what has everyone said? Surround Connor Bedard with a ton of veterans who have won Stanley Cups, who like know how to be professionals. They did it with Foligno. They obviously extended Foligno, but then they go in and they bring in TJ Brody, Alec Martinez, Tyler Bertuzzi, Pat Maroon, and Craig Smith. Like, just a bunch of savvy, wily vets to like fill in that roster. I thought it was cool. It's, again, they ain't making playoffs, but I really like what they did.
Completely agree, and I'll throw the Caps in there too, because they kind of look like they're doing something.
I was curious if you were going to mention the Caps. The Caps are doing something.
They don't, like, Pitt feels like they could fade into that cold, dark night before Sid gets launched into the stratosphere to start a new civilization on a future planet and teach them hockey.
Yep.
But the Caps, I was like, they could just die. They could rot in the ground eating old bad corn. But dude, instead, and it was mostly trades, but like PLD, which we talked about, and fucking who knows. But you bring in a guy like PLD, but then you bring in a Logan Thompson, you bring in a Matt Roy. Like, I'm like, okay, fucking get after it, boys.
Yeah, and like Radish and Duhaime are good bottom 6 guys. Like, they're filling out the roster. I love that Matt Roy signing. You're right. Like, I think it's funny with some of these trades, we kept saying like, what's Washington? Like, is Washington trying to do something here? And the answer is yes. Like they're not laying down, and I got to respect it.
Same.
All right, let's get into our 3 winners of day 1 of free agency. I think this will not surprise anyone. The obvious answer of the winner of day 1, the Nashville Predators. Holy shit. Did Barry Trotz come in and drop his fucking dick and balls on the table?
Dude. Bringing in, like, Stammer got a lot of money, probably more than I thought he was going to get, to be honest.
Yep.
But he's so productive. So we said this a million times. So that you bring in Stammer, then you bring in Marchessault like a thief in the night. Truly, like that. We had said. I think we said this in a pod. I can't remember, but it was like we had said he was going to the Devils. We had heard he's going to the Devils by people who know things. Like people who wouldn't say stuff unless it was definitely happening.
And there was a deal agreed upon. Like he was going. And you know what I think happened, Chris? And I can't confirm this. Those two are boys. Like they have played together growing up. And I think once all this shit went down with Stammer and he was like, I'm out. I think he was like, I'm going to Nashville. Hopped on the phone. Hey, Marshy, I'm going to Nash. Think about it. Think about it,
dude.
And then bang. Stammer 4x8, Marchessault 5x5.5,
which is a fucking cheap deal for him. I thought like that one came in under what I was thinking.
I mean, don't forget this guy just scored 40 plus goals last season, and now like you add these two at 33 years old, dude. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Look at Patrice Bergeron. I mean, you give Stamkos a 4-year deal, he'll be 37. Look at Patrice Bergeron when he was 37. Yep. Look at Sidney Crosby right now. Stammer was a point per game guy last year
with a laser rocket one-timer that can go bar down whenever he pleases, dude.
You're putting him in this great organization, adding him with stud players. It's just like and
on a team that was just lacking secondary scoring. So, and not that those guys are secondary. I'm just saying like they didn't have much beyond 3 guys, and now you get 2 guys that can put the puck in the net.
And isn't it nuts, Chris? Like so let's keep going down the list. They got Stamkos, they got Marchessault, then they go and get Brady Shea at 7x7, one of the best defensemen on the market. And then here's the move I really love. Out of nowhere, we kept talking about Saros potentially getting traded. Saros extended 8 years, dude. 8x7.74. Good, really good number for a fantastic goalie, one of the best goalies in the league. And then they go and get Scott Wedgwood at 2x1.5. So Wedgwood is going to be the backup, you have to imagine. And Askarov now, the best young goalie on the market, could be potentially traded.
Dan, I was stunned by the Saros ticket. Stunned. What blows my mind is because Askarov is actually he's on like under $1 million right now, 1 more year, and then he's RFA.
Yeah.
So when I saw this, my first thought we were texting was like, oh shit, he's getting moved now for something huge. But I was like, they actually could keep him.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
At the end of next year, they'll get, and he won't be the backup this year. They'll go Wedgwood, and at the end of this year, they could go Wedgwood is traded for somebody who wants a great backup. And then you get Askarov on like a bridge, reasonably priced deal, and then you just wait out. Like then you have an Ullmark Swayman situation, and so now like 2 years in, when Askarov's like I'm the guy and I have a year left, then you trade Saros for something sick. And the number was a little high for that projection in my mind. Like it's 8. What'd you say? 8.75? Is that what it was?
For Saros?
Oh no, 7.75.
7.74.
So it wasn't that bad. Like that's a good number. That's a tradable number is my point.
Oh, yeah.
So they have a lot of fun there. That's going to be like a really fun storyline for the next 1, 2, 3 years, depending on what they decide to do with Askarov.
No doubt, man. And I just, going back to last year, Trotz comes in as a GM. Everyone was a little bit like, oh, I wonder how Trotz will be as a GM. And he makes those shake-up moves with buying out Johansson and Duchesne. And everyone was like, holy shit. And you bring in O'Reilly and, you've got Flip signed there long-term. You've got Yossi signed there long-term. Now you get your blue-chip goalie signed long-term. And you bring in Stammer, Marchessault, and Shea. This is one of those, as we said, easily one of the best barns in the league, top 5. They have an amazing facility. They're right on Broadway. It's one of the coolest places to live. It's no state tax. This is another one of these southern market teams that's taking over and is turning into one of those destinations that's like, who wouldn't want to play here, dude? You got the Trube right there for everyone to golf at.
Yeah.
It's a place that people move to after they retire. You now have Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, Forsberg, Saros, and Yossi all on this team for the foreseeable future. Think about trades. Think about next year. Like, this is now a destination, just like Florida, Tampa, Vegas, that people are going to be like, I want to go to that team. So for them to get all this shit done, clear winners of the day for me.
The retool on the fly was a thing of beauty, dude.
Yeah.
A thing of beauty.
Unbelievable. Our second winner, our true hometown team, Boston Bruins.
Come on.
Got to tip the cap. For me, it was a classic. You guys needed stuff. There were holes, and they filled them. You could argue that Elias Lindholm is a guy that Boston has had on their radar for well over a year now. You had been saying it all season.
I've been saying this for 5 years.
You have.
Yeah.
100%. You've said for a long time, Boston feels like a clean, clear fit for Elias Lindholm. Last year, obviously, wasn't exactly up to his standards, what he wanted. But I think this is a situation where Boston needs a clear 1C. You're now going to put Elias Lindholm with David Pastrnak and Pavel Zacha, who have insane chemistry together. I think that this is a clear example of, we saw what Elias Lindholm did with Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau. Bang. Now here you go. He's playing with David Pastrnak. We could easily see another 80-point season come out of him next year.
You kind of need to, though, to be honest.
Oh,
Right,
70 is the floor. If he doesn't hit 70 points, it's
a bad deal
for him. 7 by 7.75. Maybe a little bit of an overpay. I think 7 by 6.5 to 7 would have been more the ideal situation, but cap goes up. Bruins had money to spend. They needed a center. They went out and got what I think you would argue is the best center on the market, like a clear center. Mm-hmm. And then they double down with the other Vancouver boy and get Nikita Zadorov. And Zadorov is just that big body defenseman, 6 by 5. I think it's a great deal for how young he is. The thing I love most about this is the Bruins now have a certified wagon defense going.
I know. Dude, it's crazy because I almost didn't even want that. Like, what did Roy get? What did Matt Roy get?
I think Roy got 7 by 7 with the Capitals.
No, he got 7?
I believe so. Let me just double check that, but keep going.
It's an incredible deal. But anyway, my point was there was deals, there were defensemen out there that I wanted, and I didn't want to spend that much on D because I like the D core already. But I also love Zadorov, so I was just like flipping back and forth so many times on it because I had allocated that money elsewhere in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe some more forward help, something like that. But I love the player and I love the number for the player. I was talking to our mutual friend Gavin.
6 by 5.75. Sorry, I was thinking the Montour.
But that's still higher. Like, that's more than Zadorov got. Like, so I thought he came in lower than that.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Gavin today, Dan. We were texting, and he was like, and he loves the moves too. He's really happy, but he was like, the killer is it. This almost felt like, when I'm thinking about Sweeney, I was like, God damn it, dude. If you had done essentially these exact moves a couple deadlines ago, you might have a cup, and then you waited 2 years and then gave them a bunch of money over the summer and fuck off. And I was like, I don't hate that take, honestly. But it's the end of the day, they had a ton of money, dude, and it's 2 good players coming in. Figure out the Swayman shit immediately, or this becomes one of the great losers. This is one of the great 180 from winner to losers of all time.
Yeah.
But presuming that goes okay, then these are good signings.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the D, you have a huge bonus with Mason Lohrei stepping up. So you got McAvoy, Lohrei, you got Lindholm and Carlo, and now you've got Zadorov and Peak. And that can all rotate. It can change. You got Wotherspoon as your guy who's, going to be filling in as the 7th man. Like, that is a great D core. Lindholm out is huge. And you've got to get Swayman. That has to get done. I mean, Don Sweeney, I think you are a fucking dipshit for the way you've handled Swayman. I mean, he should have been extended last summer. The arbitration thing was bullshit. Then he should have been offered an extension at any point all season long. And you've just waited too long, and it's frustrating as hell. But that'll get done. Then you got a little bit of money to play with, maybe fill in some stuff here. But the Bruins have said that they're looking to some of their young guys like Leisel and Merkulov to fill in and make that next step. They're point per game guys in the AHL. They're young. You got to get up here and do your thing. But like we said, there were needs. The needs were filled on two of the better players in each category. So that's a great win.
Yep.
Very similar situation. Our third winner, the New Jersey Devils. The Marchessault miss was a bummer, sure, but what did they need? They needed D. They needed a little bit of depth on the forward line. They went out. They got that Brett Pesce deal, 6 by 5.5. Great number. Great number. And then they get Brendan Dillon as well at 3 by 4. Solid number for a 33-year-old D-man. Then they get Stefan Nason at 3 by 2.75. Great bottom six guy. Also, they've been linked to a potential Ehlers trade, a potential Natchez trade. So I don't think they're done, but we can add the Markstrom deal in there as well. Obviously, that wasn't day one, but
yeah,
the Devils had needs. The Devils took care of needs. The fact that they got Pesce and Dillon in here to play with the young guys like Luke Hughes, like Nemec, and then Dougie Hamilton in there as well, that's just fantastic stuff. You got Siegenthaler in there also. And we talk about the just young guys. They just drafted a D-man with the 10th pick in the draft. They have Seamus Casey, who's an unbelievable player. We talk about trades that could happen. You've got an embarrassment of riches in young D, and then you just added two fantastic veteran defensemen to that blue line. That's everything that they wanted. So hat tip to the Devils.
Yeah. And don't forget that 10th pick, Salayev, is a guy that like just about every mock had going top 3, top 5, you know? So, and who knows, maybe there's people know shit and maybe GMs and scouts know more than I do, but like he fell to 10. That's insane. And like you said, Seamus Casey. So they are stacked there, dude. And I will say too, man, you also just said this perfectly. How often do teams just not go and get what they need?
All the time,
you know, and I'm like, fucking Christ. So the fact that they got these guys and they got them at numbers that they are really happy with was enough for me. And we're a bit projecting because we both agree they're not done. And I think there's going to be a big move made. So we're a bit projecting because this was supposed to be winners and losers up through today. And I'm kind of giving them credit for what I'm hoping they're going to do. Mm-hmm. But they have all the tools, all the chips in place to make another big splash and really remedy last year, right? The ship from the major disappointment, right? So
absolutely.
If you're a Devils fan, I think you're sitting pretty after the draft and day one of free agency.
Completely agree. All right, well, those are our 3 winners and our 3 losers of day one of free agency. I would say expect the madness to continue into day 2, but like we said, there's not many people left. But you know, we're going to see these kind of last free guys get scooped up. Hopefully, we see some trades. But stay tuned with everything. This has been absolutely crazy. Drama season continues, dude.
Yep, it's going to be awesome, Dan. There's some really cool names out there. Tarasenko, I'm positive is going back, but you know, Tyler Johnson, Roslovic, Reamer, Klingberg, Spronger. Yeah, there's some fun names. So and the names that are going to matter. The names that are going to matter on playoff teams.
Absolutely.
So I'm strap in, dude.
Stay tuned.